Hey guys, OGalbina here, bringing you guys another Twitter question discussion video. Today we have a pretty awesome question here, which is going to be, through your experience in this generation so far, which Pokemon do you consider incredibly underrated or undervalued in Draft League? And this is in a Paldea Dex format. Big shouts to Yellow for suggesting this question. If you guys have any questions, be sure to comment them down below. Good ones I'll take and I'll post on Twitter, and you can always follow me on Twitter to be a part of the discussions, and of course, drop a like on the video, sub if you're new. We just hit 1,700, so I really appreciate you guys and helping us reach that milestone. But we're pushing forward, and we want to get to 1,819, then 2K is my half-year goal. I want to get there by June. So if you can help me out in getting there, I would appreciate it a ton. And yeah, with that being said, we can jump into it. I gotta say, mine personally is gonna be Azumarill. I'm sure you guys have seen from my classic run that I uploaded, my Smogon run that I uploaded, and a bunch of other leagues and speed tours. I think Azumarill is the best fairy in the format right now. And I don't think everybody's caught on to this. Maybe it's just because of the limited fairies we have, but it seems like Azu checks every top tier Pokemon in this format phenomenally well. It can check things like Palafin, it can check things like Chi-Yu, it can check things like Chien-Pao, it can check things like Dragonite, it can check things like Iron Valiant, it can check things like, I mean, you name it. Azu probably checks it at the top of the board, and it's incredibly strong offensively. It has great defensive, capabilities. Now, no reliable recovery, but I think that either Assault Vest plus Wish Sets are great, or like Rest Talk, Fizz Def, and Spadef variants have been awesome for me too. And you can still rock out with like Choice Band and, Belly Drum sets and things like that, and still have it be really good. I think it's also underexplored as a Terra Captain. It's just an incredible Pokemon, this gen in particular. I really do think it's really good. Like, it's such a good Pokemon, but, that's going to be mine, at least here for the most underrated picks, and we can kind of scroll through and start talking about them. So first up, we have Lars here saying one of them has to be our Believa. Good support move pool, good offensive presence, and if you can play with it, and if you can play it with Terra, it can easily act as a wall breaker. Interesting. It takes a lot of hits very well and has to be one of the remaining recovery moves that actually has 16 PP. I'm wondering which one that is. I'm going to go ahead and open a team builder on the side. I got to open it on the side, though, because I have Draft League teams that have not been played yet, and I don't want my my teams being leaked here. One sec. Bam. Okay. There we go. Because we're going to kind of look up and explore these Pokemon together. And our Believa is a Pokemon I'm not too familiar with, and I don't know what 16 PP move it gets. So, actually, better idea. We're going to go ahead. Bam. Bam. Team builder. Oh, look at this. We're kind of moving right now. We are kind of moving right now. There we go. Much better. Okay. So, from here, let's go ahead and look. We got our Believa. Are you right now? I do think that Seed Sower is a pretty interesting ability. Now, the only unfortunate thing is it's not grassy terrain, and I wish they would have just given it grassy terrain. I feel like it's not that far of a cry to start giving more monster terrain abilities, especially being that they're not that good, and especially in a Pokemon like this, like, it's not going to be broken without it. But it does have good recovery, right? Since it has D-Gleam, it has Earth Power, it has Encore, which is a really valuable tool. It's really fast for Death-wise, actually, too. Which is nice. Hyper Voice for normal stab if you do end up wanting to run it. Leaf Storm is obviously a strong option alongside Giga Drain and things like that. Leech Seed, Light Screen, and Reflect. Protect. Memento was a cool option. Strength Sap. That's a 16 PP move. I didn't know it got Strength Sap. That's actually really cool. I like that a lot. It has Synth for more reliable recovery, and since you're based on your opponent's attack stat, but I mean, yeah, this thing really doesn't seem that bad. I think the thing that holds it back for me personally is that secondary normal typing really just does not seem very good. Like, it's just not very good. But again, if you are tearing and you have to tear something low tier, it doesn't seem like a very bad option. So I'm here for that one from Lars. Now, we're not going to look at every Pokemon in the builder, just ones I don't know much about. Next up, we have Incog here saying Quackle, Vol, and honestly, Primate in the right position wins out. I'm assuming wins out, right? I don't know. And with Eviolite now, it's just a bulky menace. Definitely want to look out for. Quackle is just a hidden sweeper with so much upside. Now, we'll talk about Quackle in a second, because that's probably the most common Pokemon on this list, and it'll probably save us a bunch of time. But Primate is a pretty interesting one. Now, access to Rage Fist, and like, especially if you could potentially like tear it again as a low tier captain, I think it has a lot of upside. It can be like very similar to Annihilate in that sense, like, but just for so much less value. It forces a lot of prep as a low tier, and it's not like pigeonholed into like being like bulk up Rage Fist Eviolite. You can still run like Scarf Primate variants, and like Defiant is a really solid ability. It has a better speed tier than Annihilate too. So I do think there's a lot of value of drafting Primeape right now. Like, I really do think it's a solid low tier Pokemon. I've seen a lot of people have some success with it, so I can definitely see it popping off. But I do want to talk about our boy, the Quacksters, Quackle. And I saw this Pokemon a lot, and I saw a lot of people saying it's a hidden threat, but from what I've seen, I feel like I've seen so much Quackle. Maybe it's just because I saw a lot of it in the Smogon tour, the kickoff tour. Quackle seems like a very, very prevalent offensive threat right now, and it's actually the Pokemon I think is the biggest noob killer in Draft League right now. Now, I don't mean that in a mean way, but there's always noob killer mons, right? It's usually set up like, you know, snowballing mons that new players who don't know how to deal with setup or like boosting mons don't typically deal with. Another one that comes to mind is Reuniclus or Calm Mind Suicune. And it's not that those Pokemon are bad and they only beat new players. And same thing with Quackle. But I've been seeing them a lot, and I've been seeing them have a lot of success against newer players. But Quack is a really good Pokemon, and it's one of the Pokemon I want to try the most because I think it's very, very versatile. Now, obviously, it has access to Moxie plus Aqua Step, and that kind of just like opens up the floodgates for this thing, right? Because if we boost our attack on a kill and we boost our speed anytime we click our stab option, we're going to be doing a lot of damage really, really fast. And it's a really annoying Pokemon to try and, you know, play the sack game around and things like that, because you don't want to sack something to it and give it a +1/+1 boost, because you might not be able to deal with it very well. It has great coverage as well, and Ice Spinner, Brave Bird is a really, really cool option. Aqua Jet for priority. Acro Sets are really cool. It gets Sword Dance, it gets Taunt, it gets U-Turn, it can Wave Crash and just nuke things. I think I said Ice Spinner. Low Kick is a great option. I think it also, it gets CC. Like, there's a lot of really cool things that this thing can do. It gets Roost and Rapid Spin as well. Encore. I know Amel used this thing really well. He brought Misty Terrain, Quackle, so he didn't get burned by a Skeledirge or something like that. Hold on. Yeah, it does get Misty Terrain, so I think it can do a lot of really cool things. Not that Misty Terrain is going to be one of the common ones that it does, but especially in the hands of like a solid creative builder and things like that, you can rock out with Choice Band sets and Scarf sets, which I think are really solid. But you can also rock out with like the Bulk Up Taunt variants, and Bulk Up Taunt Roost Aqua Step might be a really solid set in a matchup where you think a Grass is really bad or they don't have one or something like that. And this Pokemon is going to be very, very solid this generation. And honestly, it was a Pokemon I super slept on at the beginning of the gen. I thought it was by far the worst starter out of the bunch, but I think it's low-key up there contending with the best. I don't know. Maybe I also underrate Skeledirge a little bit too, so maybe I'm sleeping on Skeledirge a little bit too much. But I really like Quackle. I think it has a lot of upside and potential. Next up, we have Ben here saying, Fizzle saying Overquill. And this is a Pokemon I'm really excited to try, man. I actually think this Pokemon's going to be another really, really good one. A lot of people don't, and I get it. I get it. He's not going to be like World Breaker, but I think it's, one, it's the coolest Legends Arceus Mon design-wise. Two, it's got 3 incredible abilities, right? Poison Point plus Rocky Helmet is always really solid, as well as Intimidate is just an incredible ability, obviously. But it also has access to Swift Swim, a very solid attack stat in 115, a solid speed tier in 85, and it's a Swift Swim sweeper that really helps out rain builds because it's not like pigeonholed into that water typing, and it offers a lot of value outside of being Swift Swim sweeper, like a Barraskewda type Mon where it's your 4th water type, but you have it because it's here to abuse rain. You can still do that with Overquill. Excuse me. It still has like water coverage that can be boosted, basically giving it a 3rd stab in the rain. But it also has that Dark plus Poison coverage, which is really, really strong offensively, and it's really, really obnoxious to deal with. Excuse me, one more time. Jeez. It has a really cool signature move in Bar Barrage on more like fat defensive sets, giving it a 50% chance to poison the target, as well as doubling damage if the target is poisoned. So that's a really cool aspect of it. It can haze, it can spike and T-spike, it can SD up, it can taunt, it can do a lot of really cool things. I actually think this is a Pokemon I would really, really enjoy using, whether it be on rain or just as my dark poison, or like my dark and my poison type, just being an absolute nuisance. I think like AV sets could even be really cool. I don't know, man. I think this Pokemon's really good though. Like it seems like it's going to be a very solid Pokemon overall, and the Hisui and Quillfish looks like it's going to be great with an Eviolite as well. But I mean that's pretty self-explanatory, right? Okay, next up we have JB here saying I've had Ozzy on so many teams at this point it feels like a crutch, which honestly, I feel that, right? Like, I kind of already talked about Ozzy, but I'm also drafting as much as humanly possible. So I feel we're not going to talk too much about Ozzy. Next up, we have Thriller saying, even though they're technically different, but still the same, Iron Hand / Hariyama are my choices. The first time I've used these mons, and I've gotten both as kill leader, and have both been mons I enjoyed. Like how creative you can get with them, good defense and offense mons. I've always been a big Hariyama advocate, right? I think it's a great low tier, whether it be as a breaker with gut sets, whether it be as like an AV thick fat mon, or even like a guts thick AV mon or something like that. I think like AV and then like offensive, like, you know, fat flame orb sets can go crazy on some teams. It rips fat. I've even drafted with like, you know, like Slow King, so it can trick room and a teleport, get into that Hariyama and just click some damn buttons. You have Bullet Punch and Fake Out as priority, and great coverage overall, right? Like all the elemental punches, Edge Quake, Heavy Slam, like a ton of options. Like it's a really, really solid Pokemon, and Iron Hands is that just better, right? We have the secondary electric type, and electric fighting is a very, very unique and awesome typing. It's incredibly bulky, way bulkier than Hariyama. It does lose access to bulk up, but it does get Swords Dance, so like SD sets, whew, crazy. I think like Terra Iron Hands too is really good, especially if it's like a free Terra format. I think being creative with an Iron Hands and being able to like Terra Flying, Terra Fighting, Terra Grass, Terra, you know, whatever it might be that defensively lets you live multiple hits and get off an SD, are going to be really, really solid. Like, I think that Pokemon's really, really, really good. It gets Volt Switch too for momentum, so it's even better with an Assault Vest. It just has coverage out the wazoo. It's just a really good Pokemon. Anytime I've played it, I just don't have a Pokemon that can OHKO it. It's physically impossible. So I think it also gets Iron Defense, which I think is a cool aspect of like body press sets, or even like Iron Defense weakness policy sets. Like I've even thought about that, like potentially like, you know, take advantage of Earthquakes that might be coming my way, because people think that the Earthquake is going to do anything, but it's probably not. Especially after an Iron Defense. There we go. Next up, we have Tone here saying, I can mention a few. Anyone knows me knows how much I like to use Gardevoir. If you think Scarf is the only set, you need to try harder. Hariyama is also solid low budget fighting type that can fill a myriad of roles. And Crabominable is criminally underrated. Great low tier mod. Now, we already kind of just talked about Hariyama. Gardevoir is another really good Pokemon. I feel like in this meta in particular, one, there's not a lot of fairies, so it inherently becomes a little bit more valuable. And two, there's not a lot of steel types, which makes it inherently more valuable because it's a fairy that you can't really get a lot of, and it's very strong and very good offensively. Like, Scarf sets are great, but I know Kurt loved his Assault Vest Gardevoir, and he brought like more Fizz-Def sets and things like that throughout BVR. And there's a ton of things you can do. I think AV is really good. Wish sets are definitely a possible option for it. I do think that like the dark neutrality makes it a bit tough for Gardevoir to thrive defensively, which is kind of the main reason I gravitate away from it. But it's still a very good Pokemon, has incredible coverage and a lot of great utility, like a ton of great utility that Tone's right, a lot of people do kind of not pay attention to. Crabominable, I'm gonna need to see it in action, Tone. You're gonna need to leave me some replays, bro, because Crab doesn't seem like a very good Pokemon. Unless you're like, you know, doing some Terra shenanigans, and I could potentially see it, just because Ice Fighting is really good offensively, but it's so slow, it's not very bulky, and it's not a very good defensive typing, so I don't know. We'll see. Next up here, we have Gravies saying Delayed. In far too many leagues, I've seen this mon still be priced like it's Gen 8. Sharpness made an absolute demon, hitting harder than any other fighting type this gen with no drawback. Respectable bulk allows to set up, and Bandit just picks up KS for free. I 100% agree. Now, if you guys remember our BBR run was ended by a Glade, mostly due to a misclick. I'm gonna throw it in there for my own ego. Mostly due to a misclick, but the amount of respect that Glade demanded in my prep was immense. I had to make sure my entire team, like, I always had a game plan at least for Glade to not come in, set up, and win. And that's why I lost, because I misclicked and allowed it to come in, set up, and win. Whether it be with Swords Dance or Agility, it's an absolute demon. It has incredible Spadef, incredible coverage, Sacred Sword, Night Slash, Leaf Blade, Psycho Cut, like all these sharpness boosted moves are absolutely insane. And like Gray said, there's no drawback to these moves. Like he gets to click them and nothing happens, which is really, really crazy. And it definitely needs to be priced higher than we had in BBR. Fun fact, the BBRD League is happening, and I made a bunch of tiering changes. And before that started, I said, man, especially after prepping for Gray and playing the games, man, I need to move Glade up. We had it way underpricing. Guess what I did? I forgot to move Glade up, and he's at the same price in D-League. And the two people that got Glade, I think it got drafted in both pools. Good job. You probably win, because you just got like 5 extra points of value for no reason. Like, it's a nuts mon. I 100% agree. I think I was a big Gallade hater early gen. I remember Dell was like preaching how good this Pokemon was going to be to me early gen, and I just kept telling like, oh dude, you need to take it back a little bit. We're coping a little bit, but he was right and I was wrong. Like, it's really, really good. Next up, we have Rose Raid. The Rose Raid God Sing, I agree with Azu. Right now, it's number 2 on my leaderboard, only behind Roaring Moon, and it took a 5-kill game to dethrone Azu. Yeah, I mean, Azu's a demon. We've been talking about it. Absolute demon. Next up, we have Seth here saying, here's a surprise mention of Oricorio Pom Pom specifically, as it is currently S-Rank and ending right now, and I think it's on like every team. Though I think that it might get booted at some point because it's suddenly good with Terra and Quiver Dance plus Dancer. Yeah, I think that Oricorio in general got a big buff. Again, another great low tier Terramon if you need one. I think Oricorio is a really solid one because Revelation Dance changes with your type regardless of what your form is. So if you change into Grass Oricorio, you throw off a Grass Revelation Dance, which I think is really cool because you basically have like a Revelation Dance of any type, which is, you know, pretty neat. But that's not the main reason. Obviously, they're very solid in the sense that if you draft all 4 of them, because they should all 4 be together, your league's psychopathic if they split up the Oricorio forms. You have 4 really solid, like, interesting types on their own, and Pom Pom I believe is the electric one, which is definitely the best one. Electric Flying is an incredible typing. It has Dancer, so it stops other setup dancing moves, Dragon Dance and Quiver Dance. It kind of counters those. It finally got Quiver Dance itself. It's just a really solid low tier Pokemon. Like, I really like it. I've seen Fire have some good defensive niches and checking like Scizors and things like that very well, especially this gen where Scizor lost knockoff. Like, I think it's a really cool aspect of it. With Boots, they don't really fear rocks and hazards, so yeah, really good one. Next up, we have Aquarius here saying, I think Quackle is underlooked compared to the other starters, but honestly, as a Sky's skill ceiling, when used correctly, it outperforms its final Evo starter count points. Now, I do agree. Obviously, we talked about Quackle, and I think that it does outperform the other starters if used correctly. I don't know how high of a skill ceiling. So I think it has a high skill ceiling, but I don't think that it takes a great player to use it, is my only disagreement with that. And she might not even mean that, you know what I mean? But I think that's the thing, is I don't think you have to be good to use Quackle. I think that's what makes it so good. It's such a good snowball and just compound mon. It really can beat just about anyone if they're not playing very carefully about it when it's sitting in the back still. Next up, we have Seth once again. They're kind of jumbled up. They don't all get put in order. Saying Ampharos. I'm going to take a little sip of my coffee. Ampharos, I got access to Dazzling in the gen, running Agility with Mirror Herb to copy your opponent's boost when they try and sit up in front of it. You'll be able to get off as much damage before it goes down. Now, Ampharos getting Dazzling is cool. It's definitely like pretty solid coverage. Fairy's always a nice thing to have, especially with electric fighting in your repertoire. I don't know if that makes it like marginally better, especially like Mirror Herb and things like that. Like, it seems a bit gimmicky. It's definitely a cool set, and if it ends up working in a draft again, like, that's dope. But it's not going to be like a standard thing. I'm not going to like not bring Calm Mind Necrozma because my opponent has an Ampharos. I'm like, Ampharos is the Mirror Mon. But I have seen I might have seen that in like a Pokemon thumbnail or something like that where they use Mirror Herb Ampharos, which is pretty interesting. But it's definitely better this gen. Like, it's definitely not that bad. Next up is a mon that I really don't think is very good in Volusia. Volusia running Sharpness, Agility, and a Scope Lunge. You have the ability to crit through your teams when things line up. This way you don't need to always lose your half of your health using Fillet Away. The only issue is, like, I wish it just had Shell Smash, or like Fillet Away worked as like a Shell Smash counterpart, because this Pokemon's stats are so freaking underwhelming. Even if you're critting through things with Sharpness, like 102 attack is, you know, pretty solid, but it's not as strong as our good friend Gallade that we talked about earlier with 125. And even then, Gallade doesn't pick up an Oko on everything it attacks. And Volusia definitely doesn't do so, right? No, it does have like Aqua Cutter plus Psycho Cut, which is cool. Maybe if it had Agility Swords Dance, and then you could, you know, kind of do a little bit more. I don't know. It gets Recover, which is cool. Fillet Away is just a bad move. Basically what it is, it's like a hybrid of Belly Drum and Shell Smash, but I don't know. Shell Smash is better. It's usually not, you're not in a good spot giving up half of your health on a lot of Pokemon, especially a Pokemon that's as frail as Volusia. This is a Pokemon I'm actually kind of like a certified hater of. I don't think this one's very good, which sucks because I really like his design. He looks cool. His shiny is also like really cool. It doesn't show it here, but it's like green, which is super sick. I like green. But I just don't like Volusia, unfortunately. Not a great mon, unfortunately. Next up, we have Shackle King saying Skeletor's is great. Cerulege can be scary. Primeape is really solid. And the water and fire Tauroses are nice. Dondozo can do hits for days. There's a lot here. Now, Skeletor, I don't know if he's underrated, but he is a demon. Maybe I underrate him, so I think that's fair, because I'm still a little bit iffy on Skeletor, because I feel like he sucks up a Terra captain spot on your team where he isn't half as good as he should be. But I think, like, in a free Terra format, if you Terra your Skeletor, it gets really, really solid, right? It can be pretty incredible with, like, Fairy or Water or Steel or a bunch of different typings. And the only issue is I'm not the biggest fan of, like, defensive Terras, but Skeletor's is kind of a hybrid mix of, like, a defensive and offensive Terra, because while this thing is fat as hell, it sits there with Unaware and slacks off and balloons and burn things. Torch Song allows it to really be a big snowball Pokemon. A lot like its, you know, starter counterpart in Quackle. But, like, I don't know. It is incredibly solid, and whenever I've had to play a Terra Skeletor, I always hit my head into the wall the whole time, because I'm like, is it going to be Fairy? Is it going to be Water? Is it going to be Steel? Is it going to be Ghost? I've even seen Terra Dragon come before, because there wasn't a lot of moves to hit Dragon-type mons. It wasn't one of my games, but in general, so it's pretty cool. We talked about Primeape. Cerulege is another kind of, again, there's a lot of Gen 9 mons that are, like, cheesy setup, like Snowball mons, and I think that Cerulege is definitely one of them. Really high attack stat with an incredible dual stab and Fire and Ghost, plus close combat as coverage, and then weak armor. I think, like, Endure sets are really good right now. If they're not playing a lot of, like, priority or anything like that, like, Endure weakness policy sets seem really, really powerful right now. Bitter Blade plus close combat plus, like, Shadow Claw are really good. I wish I had a little bit stronger of a Ghost Stab option. I wish Poltergeist was still in the game, or, like, distributed. Does anything get Poltergeist right now, or is it just, like, not a move? Poltergeist. Nope, nothing gets Poltergeist. But, you know, I actually think this Pokemon would be pretty incredible with it. But it's a very, very good Pokemon, in the sense that it really does snowball a lot of teams. And then we have, what else? Fire and Water Tauros, I think they're actually really, really good, especially if you can get in a league like dumb like BBR. I can say that because I'm the one who made the tiers on accident. And allows them together. They're both really solid, with really solid offensive and defensive typings. Firefighting and water fighting are incredible offensively and defensively. Bulk up sets are great. They can Trailblaze to boost speed, or Flame Charge if you're Fire Tauros, but they can boost speed, they can bulk up, they can intim, they can break screens, they can do a lot of things really, really well. The fire one can Will-O-Wisp, which is good. I think the fire one's really incredible, actually. I would love to draft it, so really good mon. And then Dondozo, he's just fat, unaware demon. He's pretty self-explanatory. You don't really have to explain what Dondozo does. I feel like if you play VGC or singles, you kind of know that Dondozo is just unkillable. Now, kind of for different reasons, but he's still unkillable. Next up, we have Badass Frost here saying, I don't know if it's underrated, but Dao Spawn is a super cool mon, because not only, because on its own it's not worth a lot of points, but it's such a good matchup into half the top tier threats, and is always an incredible value pick. I've seen Dao Spawn do okay for some people. There's, like, this time where people are like, it's the Chi-Yu check, because it's immune to fire and it resists dark. But then I saw a Chi-Yu click a Spec Psychic and kill a Dao Spawn. So I'm doubting him a little bit. But I do think on its own, like a low-tier, solid, bulky-ish fairy, it's really solid in this format. Because, like we kind of talked with Ozio, I think it's just that fairy typing checks a lot of these top-tier Pokemon very, very well. And he can be a pretty big nuisance. He can wish either himself or past weaker, lower HP wishes to teammates. It can also yawn and do some cool things like that. I believe it also gets Stomping Tantrum, as well as maybe Fire Coverage. I'm not 100% sure, but it's also a Fire Immunity, which is never a bad thing. Especially on a typing that typically loses to Fire types, being able to flip that matchup is pretty cool. So, I'm a little bit skeptical on his kind of bad bulk, but, you know, it's definitely a mon. Next up, we have NFQ here, or whatever this name is. It's long. He comments on his stuff all the time, but he's a cool guy. I just don't know how to say his name, which I feel bad about. But we have him saying, Cerulege is very daunting to prep against and very easy to use. SC Bitter Blade, weak armor, plus a fourth to hit whatever the opponent's main check would be. It's so strong, but it's also very easy, which makes it good in draft. I think you hit it on the nose. We kind of talked about it earlier, but I kind of forgot to mention it's pretty easy to use, and it's definitely, again, snowball herder setup win game. So that's really cool. Next up here we have Lucan, or Lucian, I think it's Lucan, saying, I haven't really done enough to give super big ones, but Braviary getting Body Slam is really nice for both Sheer Force and Defiant sets, as well as Terra Fighting CC, it being one of the limited defog options on Paldea decks right now. That's that's a cool one. I'm happy with this suggestion. I actually did not know until just now reading that, or getting this tweet in general. I read this before, but I didn't know going into this that Braviary got body slammed. It got a more reliable normal stab, which is cool. Before it would run like Facade typically, or maybe Double Edge if it has it, but it typically wouldn't run normal stab in general. So I think it's cool that it has an option now. Sheer Force boost it's going to do a lot of damage. It's like Tauros, baby. And then on Defiant sets, again, just having a normal stab option could be nice in a lot of matchups. And Terrifying CC does seem like a really cool option. And then Defog is incredibly valuable this generation, being that not much gets Defog or Spin right now. It doesn't look like Pokemon Home's going to change that. So unless they add more move tutors, there's not a lot of Pokemon that have access to removal, which is scary. Next up here, we have Justin saying Farigiraf is pretty underrated. It can be a great wish passer, stat passer, if allowed. No, it's not. And setup sweeper. As massive move pool to pull from and 3 stellar abilities you can run. Armor Tail, you can Armor Tail if your opponent has strong priority, like Second Punch, Sap Sipper if your opponent has Braylon. Yeah, that's fair. Or any other good grass type, and Kudchu for everything else. You know what? That's just having an immunity is always a nice thing. It's a very bulky Pokemon too. I don't remember off the top of my head, but we're gonna look it up. Farigiraf. Yeah, 120 base HP. It also has Wish, which I think is another really valuable aspect of it that nobody mentioned. I'm a big fan of my Wish Pass and Fat Normals, RIP Licky. But this one's really bulky. 120, 70, 70 is really fat for its own sake, but also passing those 120 wishes into its teammates is pretty incredible. It does have those setup options, really solid coverage too. It's that Gen 2 coverage. Again, very solid Pokemon. I'm here for it. Good stuff. Okay. Then, next up, we have... Let's see, we're at Pickles. We're going to come back up. I want to see where we're at, if we have a lot. We don't. Okay, cool. Pickles here is saying, in Nat decks, I don't see enough people talking about how G-King, Toxic... G-King got Toxic, Toxapex, and Taunt. Though in general, Terrapler, Heirloom, and Talonflame are both extremely viable and worth the price. They're actually good this gen. I will say, we're going to start this off by saying G-King will never be underrated. G-King will always be aptly rated as the best Pokemon in Draft League of all time. Hands down. No, but I mean, it's actually probably pretty overrated in some instances. I love me some G-King though. I would draft that thing 8 million times over. I actually used it in a post-home, what do you call it, Paldea Dex League recently, and it was great all season. It was like Kill Leader, it was like 10-4. It's unkillable as always, and it also got Chilly Reception, which means that G-King has momentum now, just to make it the perfect Draft League Pokemon. Now it can T-Spikes and Toxic things, and also Chilly Reception out. It didn't have that before. It was actually one of the downsides to using G-King over regular King. One of the very few was that it couldn't teleport, but now it can Chilly Reception. So, like, incredible done. Next up, we have David here. Oh, I totally forgot to mention Braylon. I love Braylon. I think Braylon's a demon. I've been a big Braylon advocate for as long as time has been a construct. I don't know. I think Braylon is really good, though, man. That thing just has no switch-ins. It's very hard to fit on a draft, and I think you want another good ground resist. Like, maybe you draft this thing if you have a Slither... Not a Slitherwing, because it's also a fighting type. Someone that resists... Some bug that resists ground, or some other ground resist that fits to your team. If you can do that and take any defensive pressure off Braylon, not that it can't be good defensively. I mean, resist Edgequake, which is awesome. But man, you let this thing shine offensively, it's going to rip through some teams. I'm a big Braylon advocate, so I'm here for it. And Talonflame is great. I don't know about Terra. I've never really seen Talonflame or Braylon, but I'm interested to see how that would work out. Next up, we have David here saying Quackle, which we've talked about a million times. I told you, there's a lot of Quackle on this list, man. There's a lot of Quackle on this list. I totally didn't like Joe's tweet. He just tweeted out when I started recording this, right? Oh, yeah, let's go. Okay, thank you, Joe. But probably Meowscarada, says Didi here. It isn't a lowly valued mon, but it shines draft far more than ladder, and usually goes later than it should for how much it offers, especially speed and versatility. For sure, it's a strong stab knockoff user, which is my favorite thing about it. It throws a strong priority in U-turns and thunder punches and low kicks and even acrobatics for those what do you call it, fighting types that think they can switch in on your knockoffs. Flower Trick is an always crit move, which is awesome right now. It's a great bulky water killer, and it sets up spikes and T-spikes. Like, there's not much to hate about Meowscarada. I think it's definitely worse than the other two type changing starters in Greninja and Cinderace, but it's very good. Like, it's a very good Pokemon, so I'm here for it. Next up, we have the most recent tweet, it looks like, and Joe saying, I'd say Armarouge in the right setting. I know it's a good VGC mon, but one cannot underestimate the possibility of a doubles league probably having a second psychic terrain, second psychic mon with terrain to enable expanding force. Now, I'm not a big doubles draft league guy, but I've actually seen some cool Armarouge gaming in singles, whether it be with it as a Terra Captain, again, like Endure plus weakness policy being really solid, call mindsets, and in fighting, oh my gosh, I just can't speak. Fire Psychic is an incredible stab combination. I mean, we see it with Victini, which is my favorite Pokemon offensively to use ever, I think, at this point. It's by far my kill leader all time. It's an incredible offensive typing, and obviously it doesn't have the speed or bulk that Victini has, but it doesn't mean that this Pokemon isn't still very good. And then Baxcalibur is a good secondary one. I've seen Terra Baxcalibur just rip through some teams, man. That thing is ridiculous with, like, Terra Poison and Electric and Steel and things like that. It gets out of hand very fast with a DD or a Swords Dance up. So, really, really good mon. Next up, we have Hunby saying Avalon. I'm not the biggest Avalon guy in the world, I won't lie. It's not my favorite mon. But it is a solid spinner, and that is very valuable in today's day and age right now, where we don't have a lot of removal. And it's a good fit-stuff wall, and it's usually, like, check 1 or 2 top-tier mons that a lot of teams don't have answers for. Like last gen, it was a good Darm check early Galar decks where there was like no Darm checks anywhere. So I remember drafting it then, but it's not the best Pokemon overall in my opinion. Then we have Gohan here saying Slitherwing is one of the most versatile mons in the format, and Iron Jugulis is a strong Revenger and cleaner with booster energy speed alongside Taunt. I think these are really cool ones. Now, Slitherwing, I 100% agree. In the times I've either built with Slitherwing, in a Natdex league I have, or like helped people build with Slitherwing or played against it, it's really good, whether it be like Scarf sets, Band sets, Booster Energy sets, Bulk Up sets, Defensive Will-O-Wisp Morning Sun sets. It has great coverage too. Like, it's a really, really good Pokemon, guys. Like, I don't think people are really catching on to how solid Slitherwing is, offensively and defensively. That bug fighting typing is just never not going to be good. It is such a good offensive and defensive typing. Really offensive, but it also covers a lot of things defensively that I think are really, really good. And I'm definitely a big Slitherwing advocate. Like, I absolutely love the Pokemon. I think it's incredible. So, I'm here for it. Jugulis is an interesting one because I've never tried it, and I don't think I've even played it yet, but I think it's very slept on in general. Like, I think it's really, really strong, and has great speeds here. Hold on, what is it, 108 or something like that? Iron J. Let's see. Yeah, 108 base speed, 122 special attack. I think if this thing got Roost, it would be a certified demon. Unfortunately, he doesn't, which would be awesome, but he does get a lot of other really cool options. He can U-turn, he can taunt, like Gohan mentioned. It gets knockoff to burn items, but also has great coverage overall, too, right? In, like, fire plus water, plus obviously the flying and dark that are stabs, plus ground and earth power. Like, it can really do a lot. Charge Beam is an interesting one, too. Like, he can Charge Beam up if you really want it to. It doesn't get Thunderbolt or Surf, which is really annoying to me that it gets like Hydro Pump and what do you call it, Charge Beam. I also think it's Flash Cut. Like, it has good coverage, and I think like you said, with like a booster energy under it, it can definitely clean through some teams and be really, really obnoxious. So I'm here for this mon. I think it's actually really solid. Even dragon coverage if you really need it to hit a dragon super effectively. Kind of retains a little bit of that Hydreigon in him. He got the Hydreigon in him. Next up, we have Sven Thun saying Big Cloth, no explanation needed. You know what? You're right. No explanation needed. He's a fucking funny guy. He moves for some reason, even though he's a crab. And he's maybe solid set, hazard setter. He has the most broken ability in the game. And are they ever going to make a bad Regen Mon? No. We're also not going to look at Corsola. We're not going to. Look at me. We're not going to talk about Corsola in the comments. Okay. Next up, we have Roy Mustang here saying Taurus Aqua is really good, which you talked about. I think that's definitely fair. And Glamora 2 is really versatile. I think this is a really, really good take. I love this take. And the main reason being is because I think people see Glamora as what it does in OU, as like a sash lead, toxic debris, hazard setting mon. But offensively, I've been preaching this too. I think this mon's incredible. It's stronger than Nihilego, right? Where's Nihi hit? Where's Nihi hit? It is a little bit stronger than Nihi, barely. Less bulky and less fast, right? But it has better coverage offensively. in Earth Power, and he gets a bunch of hazards. It has 2 incredible abilities in Toxic Debris and Corrosion. Corrosion's incredible for like those steel types that you want to poison. That might be a little bit of a nuisance. You can Rock Polish up, you get Spiky Shield, you get Dual Screens, you can also remove hazards, you can Memento, you can do so much things with this Pokemon. I think Nihi is better overall, but like Glamora is an incredible Pokemon. Like, I really enjoyed using this thing in Classic, either as a hazard setter or like just like as a breaker, man. It's so good offensively, and I think that Earth Power is really what sets it over the edge, just like a great breaker. Even I think it's a better breaker than Nihi. Nihi might be a better sweeper, obviously, but I think Glamora is just really hard for a lot of teams to switch into. Then we have Farigiraf has been putting a lot of work between solid support, move pool, good set of sets, and really solid special attack stat, so it's not passive. We talked about Farigiraf a little bit already, very solid. Same thing with Oricorio. He is really rad. I thought that said bad, and I was like, I don't think you understood what we were supposed to say right there. There was another one that was to Dunsparce, and someone replied to their own tweet, so I'm going to go ahead and look through here a little bit. I feel like you said something about the Dunsparce. I feel like I saw the Dun. And I want to talk about him. Oh man, I feel like I saw him say to Dunsparce. Justin in particular. Justin, did you say to Dunsparce? You need to let me know right now. I'm gonna be upset if you didn't say to Dunsparce. I feel like I saw it. Damn it, he didn't. Okay, I could have sworn someone said to Dunsparce. If it was someone else, I apologize, I didn't say it. But I'm gonna shout to Dunsparce, the last one. He's probably the other one I'm gonna put here. The best bulky normal in the format right now, and you cannot convince me otherwise. But if you guys did enjoy today's Twitter discussion video, be sure to drop a like on the video and subscribe. And again, comment below underrated threats that you think weren't mentioned today, or ones you want to reiterate and talk about. And of course, give me some more Twitter questions. Big shouts to Yellow again for giving me this one. I have my next Twitter question supplied from him as well already. But I'd love to see, some more suggestions so we can get more videos out to you guys. Get out what you guys want to see out of them too. Yeah, again, thank you guys for watching. See you in the next one. Later.